Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And we are here today. We're going to be talking about Loki Season 2, Episode 5. A little bit later on than usual. Some technical problems earlier on in the week, but we are back and we're going to do the show as always. How are you, Alex?
Good. Been a crazy busy week. Going to be doing a little bit of traveling this weekend, so looking forward to the weekend ending the week ending and the weekend beginning. So,
Traveling to anywhere nice?
Just going about like 3 or 4 hours away from here. So I'm gonna be going inland. I'm not even leaving North Carolina. I'm just going to Charlotte, North Carolina. So,
social trip or business trip?
Nah, social trip. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah,
nice.
Just doing a little bit of traveling and just going to one of the biggest cities in North Carolina. So
Awesome. Jaren, how are you?
I am good. I'm hoping that everything goes good today because it's Groundhog Day and we are once again doing this. So for those of you that tried to catch this on Sunday, we actually did the full episode, but it looks like something got cut off and an issue with the platform and we couldn't get that recording. So here we are again doing Loki Season 2, Episode 5 again.
it was pruned.
It was pruned. Yeah, it's quite ironic, isn't it? It's actually about Loki, about these time loops, and we're back here again doing this again. But there we go. So let's jump straight in then to Loki Season 2, Episode 5. I'm just trying to remember where we started. So obviously we started with that big cliffhanger in Episode 4. The loom exploded, and we've got all of our main cast all now back onto their into their place on the timeline. We'll go through the characters one by one, have a little look at where they were, and just discuss about their past and their real lives. And we'll start with Casey. I thought what a great little nod in a similar way to they did DB Cooper in the first season. And he was what's his surname? I keep forgetting his surname. Frank
Morris.
Frank Morris. Yeah, Frank Morris, who escaped from Alcatraz. What a great little nod that was.
Yeah, they're 3-minute escape, 62, Clarence Anglin, John Anglin, and Frank Morse. And Casey was the Frank of that trio. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I was just going to say, I love how they throw those little historical ties in where, there's a little bit of mystery, like D.B. Cooper, when Loki was D.B. Cooper, nobody really knows what happened to that guy. Nobody really knows what happened to those three guys. So, with Casey, being in the TVA and everything, it's almost like, they were selected, maybe some of these people, because they're mysterious. They don't know what happened. Maybe that's part of the history. So I really like that. I also like that somebody pointed out on another group that you have a nice little tie there where Loki tells him that he's going to gut him like a fish in the first season. And then in this, he's like, if they catch us, they're going to gut us like fish. And it's kind of funny, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like how they tied in these sort of urban legends. I mean, when you think that Loki himself, the idea of Loki and Thor and Odin, it's a little bit legendy, isn't it? It's like they're like myths. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the fact that they've tied in these kind of urban legends, these modern myths, is really interesting. So yeah, Casey was a criminal and a thief. I love the way that he was trying to look to steal everything all the time.
Yeah, he's like, can we use that TemPad on a bank vault? Does that work? And they're like, yeah, but that's not what we're gonna do here,
And he's a complete 180 from Casey in real life to Casey in the TVA as well. He's like this hardened criminal in real life, and the TVA, he's like a mousy kind of almost skittish, helpful type of person at times. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't seem helpful at all in this, in 1962. So
useful, maybe though. I mean, he broke out of Alcatraz. B-15, so Hunter B-15. She was a doctor in New York in 2012, which I was half expecting. As soon as Loki sort of popped up, I was half expecting to go, wait, what are you doing here? Like a Scream or something.
I was hoping that he was gonna like pop in 2012, and there was gonna be like a window open behind him, and you were just gonna see like Loki and the Chitauri in the background fighting, and him standing in front of that. So like you see him in two places at once, and be like, just just ignore that,
But he's looking at that thinking that was only last week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to him,
Yeah.
that was no time ago,
Although having said that, he's lived a few more hours now, hasn't he? He's kind of gone back a couple of times, so he's been all over the place.
And then a nice tie there too is that from Dr. Willis, there was Variety Willis in Marvel Comics, who was a friend of Loki who had the power to see through any lie. So nice little breadcrumbs here again with these characters and how they're doing things.
Yeah, those little attention to details. Marvel's always been excellent at that.
Definitely.
So who else we got? We've got OB. OB, that was fantastic. I like that. That was. I mean, he's just been an absolute win, hasn't he, for this season? An absolute
Great casting.
win. Yeah, just so good and such a likable character as well, and a likable person. I'd love to meet that guy in real life. Like, I bet he's just like that in real life as well. But he's writing his books, and he's trying to give Loki one of his books, and he's like, I don't know, we might have one around here somewhere. He's just got stacks of them.
I love that too, because like Loki's like, well, I do have a book that you've written, and he pulls out the TVA handbook, and he's like, I became a best-selling author, and he's like, well, no, not really, but yes, but no, not really, like.
Do you think that book could have been the Zartan contingent, could have been the precursor to the TVA handbook, possibly?
Yeah, I'd like to. I wonder whether they'll release it.
Yeah,
I wonder if it's a real book.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about this. Like, I was wondering, like, we know that they're all on branch timelines, and, like, maybe Timely was on the Sacred timeline originally, and then when they gave him that book, that was the branch, but maybe OB's branch is off of the branch that Timely is on. So, like, now he was inspired by Timely on that branch, and so maybe that's why, like, he understood, he had, like, all that understanding, like maybe that was the reason he got his like physics degree or whatever it was that he had. I think that would be really cool if they somehow did that, because then it's almost like these infinite loops that we just keep having loops after loops. It's like everything's a bootstrap paradox, like.
Yeah, he was a theoretical physicist at Caltech. Also, too, his book, The Zartan Contingents, another possible Easter egg here, breadcrumb. It could be a Eternal reference. Zartans were created by Celestials. They were shapeshifters that if they copy someone with superpowers, they can use those abilities. So they were a little bit different from Skrulls, where they could actually use those abilities, and they have to be super Skrulls to have those abilities. So,
which is funny, because Loki's kind of been like a little bit of a shapeshifter, like, I mean, he changes his form a lot and appears differently and stuff like that. So I love that line where he's like, oh, I knew this was going to happen one day. One of the characters in my books came to life. Like, like, don't think that's what happened, OB.
So, question here from the chat. So, who wrote the book? Good question. It's, they keep saying that OB wrote the TVA handbook, but it was off of Victor Timely's stuff that, we had that whole conversation of that loop in the previous episode. So, it seems like OB wrote the book, but the source material probably came from Victor Timely.
Uh-huh.
Couple of really interesting bits about the Loki OB interactions in this episode was, first of all, did you notice OB's apartment or building? I don't know what you'd call it, just warehouse, workshop. It looked exactly like the TVA, so it looked like he's workshop in the TVA. I wonder whether that's where the TVA gets kind of built from.
Yeah,
it makes sense, doesn't it? And the other thing which I thought was really funny was when he sort of gave him the book. Loki gave OB the book and said, oh, the instructions for a 10 pad are in here, can you make one? He's like, yeah, I can give it a go. And then for what seemed like 5 minutes for Loki was 18 months for OB to make a 10 pad. But I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, and then showing up there in Oklahoma at, I guess we can go to Mobius now, Mobius's house, where where he actually is a recreational vehicle salesman, selling jet skis, has 2 jet skis in his garage. He has 2 boys back in Cleveland, Ohio. But yeah, the nice thing or interesting thing there, a lot of chatter about, is he an Odin variant, right? Is Mobius one? Like, I don't think he is, but there's a lot of parallels there, right? He had the 2 boys, the younger mischievous one, the older responsible one. The jet ski one was green, one was red. Similar things there. So there could be some parallels there, but I don't think he's a variant of Odin at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case either, but I did really like the dialogue that Loki and Mobius have in that scene, because Mobius is basically like, I like the name, but like all this sounds kind of crazy, and Loki's like, I need your help, but the beauty in this is if you help me, you can always come back here and it'll be like you never missed a beat, like you can live your life and work with the TVA. And I think that's kind of really something that's kind of interesting, because all these people working with the TVA would not have remembered their lives at all. They've all been brainwashed. And now, if like Loki were to somehow become in charge, he could give them that ability to have free will to go back and forth between where they were on the timeline, in essence,
And during our original recording for this, you had a good point, because he's a father with two sons. So he's a single father with two sons. They don't necessarily say what happened to his wife, and you had a good thought about that when we recorded today.
Yeah. So this takes place in like 2022. So like potentially you could have maybe his wife like left him or went missing. I mean, we've seen in previous projects they talk about like people would go missing during the snap. That way they could like, if they weren't snapped, they would disappear and claim that they were snapped or whatever, and that was happening a lot. So like maybe that was one of those things where his wife left him or ran off or something, and like maybe she actually was snapped. You never know, but like yeah, I mean there's a lot going on there potentially in the background, in my opinion.
Looks like we got the Nostalgic Pod Blast back with us via the chat. Hey fellas, just got my tickets to the Marvels in 3D for tomorrow. That's great to hear. I got mine for Friday in 3D. And actually, this is probably the first Marvel film that my daughter wants to go and see. Usually she's kind of out, when it comes to this stuff, but she watched Miss Marvel with us, the entire series. We watched it as a family. And when I told her Miss Marvel's going to be in this, she all perked up and wants to go. So we're all going as a family on Friday to see it.
Awesome.
Nice. If it works for you, Nostalgic Podcast, we're going to do our the Marvels preview this time tomorrow. We'll only be on for sort of 20 to 30 minutes, but if it works for you and it's before you're going to see the Marvels, jump on and you can have a chat with us about what you expect and what we're expecting.
Another one here from Loki season 2 is like WandaVision in regard with snapping identities. Yeah, remember, because all the people in that town, they didn't know who they really were until after the whole Hex thing was taken care of. So,
just a point on the, I guess it links all of these things actually, the Marvels and WandaVision and Loki, and the blip. I just watched the Marvel Legends episode, which I'll talk again a little bit about tomorrow when we do our the Marvels preview. But it shows the moment where Monica was in the hospital and everybody was getting undusted. And it was just carnage. And this is the first time I've rewatched that scene since the first time it aired, and it was really powerful scene. Seeing everybody just and everyone's just panicking because they don't know what's going on. There's people that are just turning up from in places that they shouldn't be, and nobody really knows what's going on. A really powerful moment. I might even go back and watch that whole scene again, like in situ, But yeah, we were just talking about people disappearing within the blip.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one more I really liked too was the one with Yelena, where she comes back she was blipped, that entire time, and she comes back not knowing Natasha was gone, or in the bathroom, and it's almost like she comes back and she like knows something's off, but like it's almost like she doesn't realize that there's been like a jump almost. I thought that was a really cool scene when they did that blip scene.
Yeah, that was excellent.
The Nostalgic Podcast says, cool, I'll be watching, seeing the movie at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that might be just after you're done. We'll be on talking about the preview. But you can always come join. Just don't tell us anything.
Yeah. So back to Loki. Great dialogue between Mobius and Loki. That was really emotional, actually. And then obviously sort of getting the team back together, and he works out his time slipping. We start seeing the noodling. He goes and sees Sylvie and her food and her drink from McDonald's noodles, and she sort of like, she doesn't really understand where it's gone. And then her whole world noodles. Obviously, that's the beginning of the end for those timelines. And Loki's got to still try and work out exactly why. Yeah, he's got to work out why, hasn't he? And he does that with Sylvie in the bar. He goes through all these different reasons, all these different things, and he works out that actually what it is he doesn't want his friends to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting there too, is that she was the only one that didn't lose her memory of all of them. Maybe because she has her rings temp pad still, maybe because she's a Loki variant. But interesting too as well, when they're in that bar, there's a arcade game called Zaniac, and you can hear Brad's voice when it starts up. So a little tie there to Brad, who's kind of on the side of Miss Minutes and Renslayer here in the background. But yeah, that whole scene was pretty cool. How she walks into the record store, and you can see she's built a life there in Oklahoma. Past just working at McDonald's, friends with the bartender knows her. The guy at the record store knows her. She goes in, puts the headphones on. You see that little bell ring, like someone's coming in, but you can't see them. Then the whole thing starts noodling. He runs. She's there. The music playing. That was a pretty cool scene, the way they did that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool. So something I just totally forgot was actually how the episode starts. A beautiful little scene with Loki running through an empty TVA and not understanding what's going on. And then he sees a version of himself and says hello. And then literally the next minute we see him and then he gets said hello to by the version that we've just seen. And I just thought, what a great way to start the show.
He better be so happy he picked up that TVA handbook when he was in there. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You better pick this up. This is gonna be important later. It's like, have you guys played the new Mario game, the Wonder? No. So in that game, there's all plants in there, and sometimes they say things. I think you're not even gotten everything yet. There's like little clues and hints. It was like that flower talked to him, like it talks to Mario, and make sure that you pick that up so you won't forget this because you're gonna need it later. Yeah. From the chat here, Nostalgic Podblast says, I like the term noodling. He also made some mentions, or I'm not sure if who the person is, but makes the mention of the critics have not been kind to the Marvels, but I don't put much stock into the opinions of non-fans. Yeah, there's been some review bombing as usual because of the whole Brie Larson hate and that kind of stuff. And then they go, I won't spoil. So thank you.
I really like the spaghettification, the noodling or whatever, because it reminds me of like what they talk about whenever like things go into black holes. It's like it's spaghettification, So like when you see the TVA fall apart or you see people start to like disappear. Also, it's a really nice visual like difference than us seeing everybody being snapped.
Yes.
Like, like turn into dust or like being turned to literally like, noodles, like falling apart. Like, I think it's nice that they did that differentiation in that way visually.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it makes it different, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because wasn't Lamentis last season where we kind of saw that being kind of taken out as well when they're on Lamentis? And weren't they just disappearing in Lamentis? They weren't really noodling like they are in this season?
Well, I think on Lamentis, I think that was like a dying world. Like that was like an apocalypse on that world. Okay. So it was like Sylvie was hiding out in the timelines where she knew they wouldn't look because they were like world-ending events kind of type deals. So,
and obviously, closing the episode, or not quite closing the episode out, but his resolution to that was that he worked out a time slip on his own. He's gone back, and I thought that was another lovely moment. He's just sitting there and he goes, I worked it out, and nobody really knows what he's talking about, but OB knows he's like, oh, you figured it out, and I really like that because for them, nothing's really happened, but for Loki, he's traveled back in time again, and he's working it out, and that's it. And he leaves with, he goes back again, and it looks like he's at that moment where Victor's about to walk out onto the into the time loop, and he says about rewriting the story, which I know Alex has got a good little theory about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my little theory on this is Loki's going to go back to that point where Timely's going to walk out on the catwalk, and he's going to basically like watch as Timely dies, and then Loki's going to reset and go back to where he started off in the beginning, and he's going to be like, all right, do this differently this time, and it's going to end up with Loki being in control of the room every time, and basically he's going to watch Timely die like 1,000 times. It's going to be like 1,000 ways to die for Timely, and he's going to basically watch that happen, and it's going to be one of those where he's going to be like, all right, we're going to do this time, and this time it's going to work, and da-da-da. And I think Loki's going to come to the realization that there's no way for Timely to do this, that he has to be the one to go out there. And I think Loki being pulled through the loom in the first episode is what's going to make him sort of like have the ability to walk out there and not be like killed by the the temporal radiation that they talked about that literally peels your skin off. I mean, it's kind of like almost like Loki's connected to every part of the multiverse, we'll say, after being pulled through the loom. And I think Loki's going to eventually realize that the loom has to melt down to let the multiverse run free. And it's just going to have to be one of those things where it's going to have to happen. And I feel like maybe at the end of this, I love the idea of him being like a god of stories. I mean, we got that great line about he can rewrite the story. I think he's going to kind of move into that, like, you know, like I have to get the TVA back into place. I have to rewrite some stories now. I got to go back and change some timelines. I'm going to probably try and go back and remove like Kang variants. And when that doesn't work, because they're like literally into the fabric of the multiverse at this point, they're so far back that even the branches like go back and come off of the sacred timeline where Kang's gone back, you know, thousands of years to ancient Egypt and everything. Eventually, like, Loki's gonna start to pull in maybe some other people and everything, and we see him pull people in this episode, going and plucking people from time and stuff like that. And I feel like that might be a
Like
little bit
Avengers
of
Prime type.
yeah, like maybe that's a little bit of like foreshadowing. Like we saw in What If that timeline play out where that was sort of like an anthology series where they had like the Guardians of the Multiverse. I feel like we'll probably get something sort of like that with Loki, and Loki will probably go. And this was kind of like us seeing the first way that they do it, and this is going to be where Loki gets the idea of like, I need like some people from certain universes, and he's going to go and just boom, 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 boom. And yeah, I mean, there's tons of people that we don't know that are alive or dead right now, like the Scarlet Witch, for example. Like, you know, like some people think she's dead, but you could go and like pluck her right before she dies or whatever.
Or, yeah,
and, yeah, and like if she is actually dead, but you could go and pluck her and pull her in, and then she could help Loki, and then you could do that with like other characters and stuff throughout.
It's similar too to Spider-Man No Way Home, where they plucked the villains out of the universe just before they died. Yeah. Also, too, your description of Loki doing it over and over again reminds me of that moment with Doctor Strange. You know, Dormammu have come to bargain, and he keeps doing that until he actually gets that right, or not to gets it right, but in that case, to piss Dormammu off to make the deal. But to me, with Loki having these new powers, it almost seems like he's like the living embodiment of the Time Stone and the Reality Stone, especially where he says, I can rewrite stories and the whole time slipping thing and so forth. And to me, it does feel like possibly they could be doing some parallels with him as Nathaniel Richardson Timeless, who actually had the two stones in his eyes, but on a pirate timeline that was trying to merge with the main timeline. So I'd be interested to see what we see in this final episode tomorrow. The other thing, too, it also seems like Loki's on a similar journey as Thor was, and there's some parallels there to the first Thor movie, you know, kind of being cast out, being cast to the TVA, having to go through, make some new friends, figure out who he is, who he wants to be. And then even there's that reference with OB about, you know, science fiction is the how, which is similar to the whole Jane and Dr. Selvig about science fiction becoming science facts and all that kind of stuff in Thor as well. And then it seems like that ends with, you know, both of them find themselves, figuring out who they are. And I figure this is going to be Loki's big moment, and he's finally going to become king in some way, because on the poster, we still see that king variant costume Loki, which we have not seen yet.
Yeah, and I mean, instead of him being the king of the 9 realms, he's like the king of the multiverse. You know what I'm saying? Like, instead of him overseeing the 9 realms, he oversees the multiverse. And I think that's a lot cooler than being like the king of the 9 realms, you know? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's a tease there too that they had. So the official Thor Instagram account replayed that scene from the first Thor when Loki and Thor were kids talking about Odin, when he says only one of you can be king, but you both were born for it. And it's interesting timing that they put that out last week, and now we're going to see this King Loki variant possibly in this final episode.
Mm-hmm. Look, on the him redoing things over and over again until he gets it right, and yeah, like you were saying, it was it's got reflections of Doctor Strange doing it with Dormammu. But I was just sitting here thinking about all of these times. I've just started watching a new show over here on Sky Max called The Lazarus Project, and that a similar thing happens in there. They kind of redo things over and over again until they get it right. It reminds me of Edge of Tomorrow a little bit with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, you know, where he keeps dying and then they keep having to go through all the movements to get away for the next bit. Men in Black 3, there's a great bit at the end where he keeps going back in time to miss the bullets that not bullets, the spikes that the monster's shooting at him. But yeah, I love those little kind of they kind of go back to redo it. I'm just going to go back and redo it again and just see if I get it right this time, and have another go, and then memorize my movements. It's like play. You mentioned Mario a little moment ago, Joan, but it's like playing that, isn't it? Because that was about timing. A lot of the time you have to go back, and then you die, then you go back again, and then you try it again, then you die, and then you go back again, and then you keep going. You get a little bit further each time until you get to the end. So yeah, I like that idea. I always find that quite interesting.
From the chat here, Jimmy Cloud, I'm wondering if they went back and rewrote the end to make Loki or Sylvie the new He Who Remains too, as a way to write out majors, which I don't think that has happened, just for the fact that they said that because of the strikes, they could not change out this series, and this was done. So I think the ending is the ending that we're going to get. One thing, though, I will say is that it seems like you want to watch the final episode of Loki before seeing the Marvels, from what I've been hearing, because it'll make some things make sense if you see the season finale first before going to see the Marvels.
You know, building off that idea, I think back to in season 1, you had that great scene where they're talking to He Who Remains, and He Who Remains basically says, like, you can either take my job or you can kill me, and then have this multiversal war. And I think it was like, that was like, you're basically going to take my job or this is going to happen. I don't think those were the only, like, those were 2 options. I think those were the only 2 options, in my opinion. So I think Sylvie took the messy route, which was kill him. And that was like, it was almost like a double tier test, if you will. And so, like, when they broke past the threshold, that was like new ground that he had never been with, like, a Loki and Sylvie variant before. So once that happens, all this has to play out in season 2 to get to that next step, which is eventually Loki realizing that he has to replace He Who Remains and take that role. And that's going to be one of those things where it's like all roads almost probably lead to him eventually taking over in some form or fashion, you know?
The subject Podblast sucks. I can't see the season 2 Loki finale before seeing the Marvels. Oh well. I don't think you'll be that disadvantaged by doing it that route. I'm just saying this is the recommended way to do it, because something happens. I guess something's going to happen in the finale that's going to make sense in the Marvels. I don't know. It could be nothing. It could be misinformation, but that's the smoke that I'm hearing out there lately.
I just hope that one time between Friday and Sunday, I hear the word incursion in one of these 2 projects, you know, like, I'm just sitting here just waiting to hear it. Like, you know, somebody please say it one time, you know.
And speaking of incursions, they haven't actually said that, have they, in Loki, ever?
I don't think they have.
And it's and it seems like in MCU, incursions are tied to people, not like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah. Where in the comics, incursions were more like natural events, more like a tornado or a hurricane type of natural disaster type event in the comics, whereas in the MCU, it's more tied to a person. It's spending too much time in someone else's timeline, which, who's explained that? Reed Richards' Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. I think that's the only time we've heard incursions was in that movie.
Yeah. It's weird. You don't hear it in the TVA. Like, you would think that would be something that would be incredibly pertinent to the sacred timeline, which is the threat of potential incursions happening.
Unless they don't know yet.
And I was just about to say the exact same thing. Unless they don't know that can happen.
Or it's a byproduct of the temporal loom failing because all the timelines are spiraling out of control and they're
crashing into each other.
Yep, and one's destroying the other, one's taking the place of the other. Yeah, like, people like are living and dying from one's, you know, combining and stuff. Like,
that person being there is like that gravitas to bring their original one in to crash into that one, since we have all these branches and that kind of stuff out there. So yeah, that could be it too, because we don't know where Loki actually sits right now, because Loki, you know, the TVA is kind of out of time and space, so we don't really know if things are in parallel, before, after, you know, that kind of stuff, or just because time is different down there, that it's not really affecting them. And that's also why, too, that they don't know when some of them have been hiding out in different timelines, if it was going to cause anything, like, well, Sylvie's cause that one where she's at after this.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said a moment ago, for Loki, it's only been a week or a few days. He mentions it, I think, in the last episode. He says, like, or Renslayer says, the fact that she's only been gone a few days and the TVA's just like busted in a few days. But obviously it takes place across lots of different times. You know, we saw just in last episode, it took place across 50 years, you know, from 62 to 2022. More than that, 40 years.
Which I think that's pretty good writing, by the way, because like in the first season, you know, they would talk about time and it was like, you know, what is that? Like, we don't even know what that is here, you know? And then in this season, like once the boundaries of the TVA are like starting to erode and like things are starting to become in jeopardy, suddenly everybody's like recognizing that time passes in the TVA, you know, like OB's like, oh yeah, I saw you, Mobius. What was that, like 400 years ago? Like down here, you know, like, and I think that's like very subtly like giving away that how much in jeopardy like the TVA was at that point earlier on, and what we were leading up to, which is a threat to, you know, the temporal loom. But
also speaking of the writing too, as well, I think the pacings up until now has been pretty good in this series. You really haven't felt that episode 4 to 5 filler episode. It seems like every episode's been building. The pacing's been good, and we're not just sitting there wondering why we're having this slow episode. Everything's been pacing fine and moving towards what this finale is going to be. And it seems like as long as they keep that, this finale is pretty much going to stick the landing, as long as they don't change up how things are paced and what they're doing. And it also sounds like, too, is that the finale will be the longest episode of the season at 56 minutes long. So
yeah, I think episode 5 is a great start to that finale. Leading into that finale, I think that was, I mean, it was emotional. It tugged on your heartstrings. It's interesting seeing this guy that was literally the Loki that was in Avengers 2012, that was literally like, you know, wanting to like take over the Earth and become king, is now like a week later in his own like perspective has completely changed, has had a change of heart and everything like that. It's just, it's great. And it's like seeing that like versus Sylvie, who's been hardened by, you know, being on the run and all this. It's been nice. And then you see everybody kind of come together and start to make a movement to try and figure this out. Loki's gonna, you know, go back and try and change some stuff. I mean, like, I'm really excited for the next episode. I think this has been one of the most solid Marvel shows that has come out.
So
yeah, I agree.
Where do we think the next episode's going to go? Because we haven't seen, like I said before, we haven't seen the King Loki variant yet. We don't know what's going to become of Ravonna Renslayer after she got pruned, and we see the picture of her with Goliath in one of the trailers. It seems like there's been some teasing by the Miss Minutes Twitter account, or X account, whatever you want to call it, that she's going to be rebooted and she'll be back. And so I wonder what we're going to see with the final episode and where things are going to end up. Like, are we actually going to see more of He Who Remains flashback possibly? Are we going to end up seeing any of the Council of Kings show up at all in this one? Is the Conqueror going to pop up? Like I said, I still don't think he's dead from Quantumania. I think he got possibly put in a probability storm like his power source was, or maybe put into another level of the quantum realm. Or the ending was a big fake out because the way Scott acted at the end of that movie. So what are your thoughts on the next episode?
I think that we're going to end up coming back round into a loop. I think this whole thing is a loop, and the loop's going to end up with Kang in control of the TVA again. I think we keep seeing loops repeating themselves over and over and over and over again. And it's already kind of been teased, you know, when Sylvie said about you're not taking him back to the TVA. That's exactly where he wants to be. That's where we shouldn't take him, and they do anyway. And I do think that Loki's going to feel like he's changing things and he's improving things. He's going to make it better, but at the end of it, he's not going to make it better. It's just going to start all over again.
See, I think we're about to break the loop. And I think we're about to get to that point where, like, they're going to realize that, like, the loom's going to fail. Everything's off the rails. They've just got to, like, roll forward and try and change things. I think this is going to make Loki go, like, kind of... This is where, like, I would love to see a Loki season 3, but I don't know if we actually will, because I don't think you actually have to have one. But you could have Loki suddenly become very, like, Kang variant focused. And being like, I don't want to remove the timelines. I don't want to prune timelines. I don't want to have billions of people lose their lives. I want to only remove just the Kang variants. I need to stop them. And we've already seen that some of them, like Timely, are on the sacred timeline that were like activated almost in previous history. I'm almost willing to believe that there's more of them that are on the sacred timeline that will branch out and like lead to things. I feel like this is going to be one of those situations where like Loki's going to have to go back. Like we're going to probably see him go back like further in time trying to remove them. They're going to allude to that. And then maybe this sets up a Loki season 3. I would love to see it, but you know what? They don't necessarily have to. You could have Loki just basically make this plan. He's got his little team together, and yeah, like the multiverse is basically out of control. The TVA is destroyed, and he takes his group and he flees. And that could be the end of this, and that could go into, you know, another project if they really wanted to.
One thing I've been thinking about too, and I talked about this on our other episode that we did, was that I wonder if the sacred timeline only has the one variant, Vigor Timely, who ends up becoming Who He Remains at some point, and that the TVA solely exists to monitor the other stuff, other timelines, and if one timeline gets to where it could interfere with the sacred timeline, that's when it gets pruned. Like, for example, could the sacred timeline be a hiding spot for this king to say, look, I know all those kings are out there. I want to control this timeline. I want to be the only one here. And so the loom, the timeline, we're all hidden. But as soon as those branches happen that threaten to expose them to the other kings can come in, variants come in, that's when they were going and pruning them before all this happened. So that's where I wonder where this happens, to where if once the loom, like you said, if it does explode and we're at a new point in time, that's when all the Kang variants are basically coming in and gonna get into the sacred timeline. Because maybe the council knows it, the council can see it, I don't know, but it seems like this may be of a specific one to make sure that he reigns in control, and that he's always going to remain that way. So that's why I think that they could be hidden from the other ones, and this will expose them.
The genius in this too is with Kang, I feel like in all his variants, we don't know which one of them is the original one from the sacred timeline. You know, like it may be Timely, it might be another one of the variants. It could be Kang the Conqueror, you know, like
Anthony Richards popping up, you know.
Yeah. So like, and you could very well have tons of different ones. I like to believe, in what I'm kind of hoping for is Loki goes to try and go all the way back in time to change stuff, and then he starts to realize that Kang did things like put the Bangles in the past, he put the 10 rings in the past, and it's one of those situations where it's like, had he would have not put the 10 rings in the past, then this creates the issue of, then Tony Stark is never put in the cave by the 10 rings. Tony Stark never becomes Iron Man. He never makes time travel. He never reverses the snap. And that's the event that basically, like, you know, we know the Avengers are supposed to go back in time, but I think that might be the changing point where you find out this was supposed to happen, where Loki was kind of chewed up and spit out of that situation, because that situation created Loki. And I feel like that might have been engineered to, you know, for that purpose. And Loki may find himself that if he goes back to a certain point and tries to change things, then he may like doom himself and not be there to do it. And so it might be one of those, like, you know, you can go ahead and break glass here, but if you do, you're gone too, Loki, you know, like, so it may like be one of those situations, I feel like, where they might go at it one angle and be like, oh no, we can't do this, we got to go at it from a different angle almost, you know.
We also had a situation, too, where the Council of Kings and the variants banished the Conqueror to the Quantum Realm. I believe we talked about, we think the Quantum Realm might be the one piece that's like the tie of all the universes, to where it's kind of outside that. So just like with time travel, you know, you coming out, going to one point, come out another. Same thing with the multiverse. You could go into the Quantum Realm and come out another point and possibly be in a different universe as well.
And at the end of season 1, when Loki goes back to the TVA, when he's pushed through by Sylvie, he looks up and he sees the statue of Kang the Conqueror. And we see in the beginning of this season that he's in the past, right, of the TVA. So at this point, like, it looks like they had Kang the Conqueror. So in the future, they would have had the 3 like statues of the Timekeepers and everything. So I'm assuming that that's supposed to represent the 3 like Council of Kang members, you know, Ramatut, Immortus, and Scarlet Centurion. But like, you know, it's almost one of those things where, like, I think it's a very strong argument to be made that you could have like Timely become Kang the Conqueror, who eventually gets ousted and replaced by the 3 Kangs, the 3 Kang variants, who then remove him, and then, you know, eventually He Who Remains ousts them and then becomes, you know, the one in charge. But then once he dies, they come back or whatever. You know, they could go all sorts of different ways with this, to be honest, you know.
Yep.
Mhm.
24 hours pretty much. And we'll find out some stuff.
Yeah.
I have to wait. I've got to wait a little bit longer. I'll be 48 hours. Less than that. Okay, cool. Right, should we move on because we've got some other stuff to talk about? We got hit up with a new trailer this week, and we've got that awful article from Variety to talk about, and a couple of other bits and pieces. So, what you got on the list, Jerry?
Yeah, so that Crisis at Marvel Variety article. I'm probably gonna get on a soapbox here on this one, but one of the quotes in the article says Marvel is truly effed with the whole Kang angle. Says one top deal maker who has seen the final Loki episode, and they haven't had an opportunity to rewrite until recently because of the WGA strike. But I don't see a path to how they move forward with him. With Majors already positioned as Marvel's next big bad, backup plans were discussed that included Doom. Okay, so let's talk about that. You could bring in Doom, but my thing is just recast Kang, that role. Just recast that. And it's like you could bring in other people. You could bring in Damson Idris, who played in Snowfall. It was a great series. He could play the role very well. I know we talked before, and I believe was what Jimmy Cloud mentioned in the group too. To remind me of this, the High Evolutionary. You can make him a variant, and Chadwick Luigi could play the role going forward. There are some parallels there. In Guardians 3, here we go. From the chat real quick. Before I sign off, just wanted to say, fun idea for tomorrow night: spaghetti and key lime pie for dinner. There you go. Enjoy. But yeah, you could just recast. You could just you go the whole Chadwick Luigi route to make him a variant, and then make him take over the role. I don't think you need to bring in Doom at this time. If you do bring in Doom and say you can make Doom the man behind the strings the whole time, and you could say every Kang variant that we've seen so far is a Doom bot as well. But I don't think you need to go that route. But I think you could just, if it comes to that point, you could just recast that role.
You know, you could have the temporal loom collapse in the next episode, and let's say we get a Loki season 3 first episode. Could be so easy to fix this problem. It could be Loki's like, I've got an idea. We're going to go back and try and like prevent Kang from like coming about. So we're going to go all the way back to like the first variant, and they try and like remove him, and another version of him appears, and it's like another actor or, you know, whatever. And then they all look like that because we know all the Kangs look like Jonathan Majors, basically. So like, you know, it'd be like one of those things like he's written into the universe at this point. Like you almost like cannot have an outcome that doesn't end up with a version of Kang. And I think that would be a great situation, because then that would mean like Loki really has to get down like into the brass tacks of the universe to like change what's come before to get rid of him, you know.
From the chat here as well, one more thing: are we getting What If season 2 next month? Yes, we are. Don't know exactly when, but it's been confirmed it's coming at the end of this year sometime.
We have a number of episodes.
I don't know. There was rumored ones. I think it's like 9 or 10. I think I can go back and look again. So, but yeah, on your point too, they could also just the actor who they cast as Reed Richards. He could be. There you go. There's your new Kang.
I just simply think if they can't move forward with Jonathan Majors because of whatever happens in this trial that he's going for, whenever he goes for it, just recast. Don't need to say anything. We're not stupid. We understand that, you know, some people have to lose their jobs for various reasons, and if this is the case, that's the case. It gets recasted. Nobody moans about how James Bond looks different every, you know, 4 or 5 movies, and nobody really cared when Don Cheadle took over from Terrence Howard. And
well, Terrence Howard cared, but
Yeah, I mean, I like Cheadle better than Terrence Howard.
do too.
yeah, so do I. Yeah, so do I. But I mean, you know, like, I don't think they need to patronize people. They can just go, look. They just don't even say anything. Just go, look, you know, sadly we can't move forward with Jonathan Majors because of things that have happened. But, you know, we're getting this new guy in the role, and that's it. Done.
Yep.
Move on. Carry on. Just carry on telling the story they wanted to tell. Simple.
Okay, so the next part of the article, they also discuss bringing back original Avengers cast, including reviving Romanoff and Stark. Also bringing back Steve Rogers, basically suiting up the original Avengers crew. So a couple ways they could handle this. Steve Rogers, easy. They keep saying he's on the moon. We don't know he's actually dead, but they've already set the precedent of pushing time through someone. In Endgame, when they push time through Scott Lang, they could push time through Steve Rogers, make him basically back to his old self. Romanoff and Stark, they set the precedent in What If, where they brought Black Widow for the universe. They do the same thing with Stark.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
honestly, though, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I would really like to see them do the whole AI thing with Tony, and then you could just have him just do dialogue. He doesn't actually have to show up and stand there on screen. You could have like a little AI version of him pop up and like appear, and they could do it with Riri. We've already had the foundation laid for this. She's hacked into Stark Industries. She's got blueprints. She's been in the system. She can find something like Edith, and it can be like the hero protocol or something that Tony has, where like he's like just waiting for somebody that's smart enough to hack into Stark Industries to find this, take it, and then find out it's like an AI that is created off of his personality and like his like everything about him, that's been from him having his house run by Jarvis to the suits being run by Friday, you know, to every AI that he's had. It's like a personality that's built up based off of him for the last 10 plus years that we've seen him on screen. And I think that would be such a great way. And it's very comic accurate, you know.
And there's breadcrumbs there, you know, from Civil War, being at MIT, funding all the projects, you know, that whole thing at MIT and the whole barf thing, you know, that cascaded into Far From Home. But him doing the projects, finding projects, he could have put some stuff there during that time to say, look, like he said, if someone finds this is locks them. If someone's smart enough to do this, I'm working with that person, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
They've already set the precedent with Riri having Stark Industry plans and Wakanda forever. She's at MIT. Like you said, there's a comic history there. So why I wouldn't be surprised if it was Morgan Stark, since they had that tease of the rescue helmets on in Endgame. I wouldn't be, you know, I would be on board with Riri doing this, and maybe that could be what we find at the end of her show. Or as part of Armor Wars, because those Ironheart and Armor Wars are going to be tied together at the hip. So
Yes.
Yep. Cool.
But reportedly RDJ has agreed to return. And Chris Evans reportedly agreed to return for Secret Wars prior to the strike. My last thing I'll say here is that if they do any of this, it should just be for Secret Wars. Don't go back, move forward. I understand people are clamoring for a new Avengers movie. Just make a new Avengers movie with a new team. We have all these different options out there, all these stories to tell. You've got Fantastic Four still to build on. You have X-Men still to build on. We don't need to go back to the OG Avengers. They just need to start bringing these new ones in and give us another Avengers movie. The Marvels sounds like a mini one with the team up, but we need a proper Avengers movie, and they could do that. Kang Dynasty is supposed to be one, but they could do something even before that about assembling a new team, you know, for a smaller threat than Kang.
Yeah, I almost feel like I've kind of got the same opinion on this as I do like with like Doom being in like a Secret Wars project, which like, yes, he should be, like that would be absolutely awesome if he was, but I feel like with everything going in, I just don't want to see them just try and ram the character in real quick just to be able to put him in a Secret Wars movie, and I don't want to see them do that, bringing back, you know, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans to play those characters. Like, we don't just have to like force them back in just to make them in a movie just to try and like get a lot of ticket sales, you know. I don't, we can wait a while on that, and there's so many alternatives. Like, we can see Old Man Steve for a little while. That would be cool, you know, like see Old Man Steve like in something like the new Captain America movie coming out. That would be a perfect like way just to see Steve like still talking to Sam, like still giving him a push, you know, telling him like, you know, you're the right man. Yeah, you know, you were the right man. I chose you for a reason, Sam, you know, like, and I think that would be really awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be really great to see that Sam is still, you know, on the quiet, still talking to Steve, you know, and Steve's still mentoring Sam. And I think that would be a nice way to make the world realize, well, not the world, but us viewers realize that Steve is still alive and that he's still around. And then, yeah, and like, I mean, I'm a big Captain America fan anyway, and like we said before, they've shown us the mechanism to bring him back into the fray as a younger man by pushing time for him. He was literally in the same scene, you know, so he knows that technology exists. And if you've got somebody around that's smart enough and that thinks that and can persuade him that this is something that needs to happen for the greater good, then I don't see it being a problem, especially if you've got a group of heroes that aren't galvanized and that aren't being led by anybody. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But like Jorian said, maybe not as a one-off, as like, oh, that's it, we're never going to see him again. But he should be like, you know, I'm doing this to, I'm sort of coming out of retirement kind of thing, and I'm going to do this as a one-off. And then, he goes off and lives a life again. And, he's kind of like that, the sort of hero that they call on when needed, rather than just he's around all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's like the beauty in Captain America, right? Like people look at him for his like experience and for his leadership, right? Like people like realize that he's not probably the most powerful person on the field, but they know that he's going to be one of the last ones to like fight till he can't stand anymore, So, and that's kind of what makes Captain America in that essence of like, why he chose Sam for that same reason to be Captain America. So I feel like, they could do so much with Steve just being an old man, just lurking around in the back of the MCU if they wanted to.
So the next part of this article, Mahershala Ali reportedly considered leaving Blade due to script issue. The project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. In one of the versions of the script, Blade was relegated to a 4th lead of the movie. To keep Ali on board, Kevin Feige has hired Logan writer Michael Green to work on a new script. The film will move forward with a budget of less than $100 million, a big departure from the usual spending habits. Okay, so this has also been recently debunked as well. But so far, this article, the major stuff I get because of what's going on with him personally. But to go after DaCosta and to go after Ali in this article, it just feels like a hit piece. And also, too, the same person of this article was the same person who apparently did the hit piece on Ray Fisher during the whole Justice League stuff. So the piece on DaCosta here, well, I'll do Blade first. So writer Michael Starberry addressed Blade via X. He said, I worked on a draft of this before the strike, never saw a version where Blade was 4th lead or it was a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. But I suppose a lot could have happened since I had anything to do with it. He was 99% of the scripts I was a part of. He was in almost every scene when I was involved. I don't know what happened, but I'll just say I seriously doubt he was ever the 4th lead in my draft. Whatever is going on with Blade, I'm hoping for the best. Some good folks are involved in that joint. So
cool. I think I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's people slating movies before they've come out and slating this process. Oh, well, in this draft it was this, and in this draft it was that. And it's like, yeah, and it's a draft. You wouldn't watch an artist trying to paint a picture and then start knocking it before he's finished. He'll turn around and go, yeah, but I haven't finished yet. Like, why don't you wait until the end, and then you can judge it? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're looking at an unfinished thing here. This is just the first draft. This is just my pencil work, or this is just, me doing the layout. Like, I'm not finished yet, and I think we kind of forget. Well, we don't forget. We're quite down to earth, but these people seem to write these articles just to try and get a massive response.
Yeah, they're bored. The strike's going on. Nothing's moving. People are bored, basically. A lot of this article is BS. The last thing I on Blade, via Jeff Snyder, the executive who was overseeing Blade has exited Marvel Studios. A source indicated it was because they didn't sound the alarm early enough regarding problems in the project. So there you go with that as well. When we do our episode on Monday, I'll have some more Blade news. That's good news too.
Awesome.
The last part of this hit piece article, which again is BS. The Marvels director Nia DaCosta began working on another film while The Marvels was still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin prepping for her Tessa Thompson-led Hedda. Now, this is also another problem I have too. This happens all the time. I believe production on The Marvels was done in 2021. Then you had all the stuff with scheduling changing, that kind of stuff. This movie was bounced around a couple times, right? Also, then you have the writer strike, and now you are the screenwriter strike. And now you have the actor strike, where she has to promote the film, the red carpet by herself, because you can't have the 3 leads there. But she's one of Marvel's youngest director ever at 30 years old, right? She still worked on the film remotely. But I don't know why she's being called out for this. It happens all the time. Josh Whedon, who probably did one of the most important films in MCU early on, the Avengers film, filmed an entire film while he was working on the Avengers in between that. And then you have James Gunn, who between Peacemaker and Guardians Special and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he was back and forth. You know that ending scene of Peacemaker with the Justice League cameo? That was shot at Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't understand why she's getting picked out on this when these directors are doing this all the time. Like I said, Peacemaker was back and forth between Guardians Christmas and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 production and so forth. So I understand this. Like I said, it feels like a hit piece. It's like someone's bored. It's like, it's funny too, because the whole week before that new Marvel's trailer came out, everyone's like, Marvel's dead, right? Everyone's going into the video game saga or the video game universe. It's that Marvel's dead. Then as soon as the Echo trailer comes out and the Marvel trailers came back, or the Marvel's trailer came out, it's like, we're back. Nothing happened. Yeah. The last thing I'll say about this, though, is that Marvel has made $30 billion over 32 films. That's like 900 something million per film on average. So Marvel is not dying. And so far, what I've heard about the Marvels, plus what we saw from the Echo trailer, I'll talk about here shortly, I don't see anything changing. So,
yeah, I mean, I think controversy gets clicks ultimately, you know. So, a lot of people are gonna attack stuff. It's also really hard. Like, I think a lot of people will like criticize something and they haven't seen it yet, and it's a little bit hard to like give your critique on something when you don't even know the plot of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
always cool to not like the popular thing, isn't it? You know, the thing that's big, it's like, no, I'm not going to like it. And it's quite ironic, really, because, you know, if you'd have gone back 20 years, it was the unpopular thing. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the cool thing to like Marvel comics, you know, and to like Marvel stuff and superhero stuff. It was almost looked down upon. And now it's like, it is, well, I don't know whether it is or not, but it seems like it is like the cool thing, and everyone is into it, and you hear it all on all the radio stations and the TV, you know, adverts and all of that kind of stuff. And you've got people like us who have liked it all along, and we're kind of going, it's that whole thing, and it's like, I liked Marvel before it was cool. Like Vitruvius in Lego Movie. I liked Emmett before he was cool.
Yeah, I also think, like, with this Marvels movie, you know, for the Marvels to be made, I think there's going to be a certain amount of controversy for the people that don't like Brie Larson, whatever. You know, like,
already hate reviewing it.
So you're going to have that. But, like, also, like, as somebody that's, like, you know, read comics, looked at this character of Captain Marvel, I feel like maybe y'all can agree. I feel like that's kind of like a very, like, she plays the character pretty accurately. Like, it's not an extremely likable character. Like, you know, like Carol Danvers is like one of the most stubborn and like bullheaded people in the world, and once she gets her mind set on something, she is never going to stop, you know. And
that was portrayed perfectly in the first movie.
It was.
Yeah, so like I feel like, you know, it's one of those things, like, yeah, you may not like the character and everything, but like I will give Brie Larson props, like she does play it pretty accurately, you know. So like I think that's a good casting choice. So
Disney has purchased the remaining stake in Hulu from Comcast. It will require the remaining 33% stake in Hulu December 1st. Disney expects it will pay NBC Universal approximately $8.61 billion, representing NBC Universal's percentage of $27.5 billion guaranteed floor value for Hulu. So,
yes.
Yep. So you're probably going to see some stuff coming there. I'll have some more news on Sunday or our next episode about that as well. I'm sticking to the news from Sunday.
And Echo's going to appear on Hulu.
I'll get to Echo here in a second. Okay. Deadpool 3. Sean Levy says Logan is canon to the story of Deadpool. Logan is canon. We love Logan. That happened. I want the world to know, as the producer and director, all of us share a deep love and respect for Logan, every aspect of how it's crafted and the events that take place. And that was early on that they weren't going to mess with Logan. So that's no surprising there.
Technically, that takes place in like 2028 too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, like, technically, I mean, they could kind of just push that out and be like, oh, that hasn't happened yet, you know, and just put him back at the end of whenever they're done with Hugh Jackman and just let him have that Logan death, you know?
That was a Days of Future Past was the last time we saw him, and he woke up in the new future of X's mansion. So, yeah.
That was brilliant, that. And Charles sort of turned around and goes, oh, I wonder when he was going to sort of turn up, you know? Like, he's been there the whole time, but, you know, like Wolverine's been there the whole time. But now he's conscious, he's there. Yeah, that was great.
Moon Knight news. The mirror sequence in Moon Knight took 10 months to complete. It was the most complicated shot in the series. That's the series in the bathroom where all the mirrors are there when he first sees Moon Knight and has the whole thing there. So yeah, that took 10 months to complete.
Wow.
It was a good scene.
Now we're on to Echo. Echo, no bad deed goes unpunished. And they had the whole thing unpunished in the trailer that we saw. I wonder if we're going to Punisher teaser cameo in here. But all episodes of Echo, a new original series, will stream January 10th on Disney Plus and Hulu. To see this on Disney Plus, you have to set your profile to TVMA to stream. Disney's not dark enough. MCU's not dark enough. Here you go. TVMA. You saw the trailer. We saw a lot of stuff in that trailer. All episodes will be available on Hulu until April 9th. This is the first series to be simultaneously released on Disney Plus and Hulu.
That trailer looks awesome. That trailer was amazing. I was blown away by that trailer. I was blown away. Yeah, I was blown away by the sounds they used, by the scenes they used, by the dialogue that they used. I thought it was an absolute knockout of a trailer.
I think it was one of the best Marvel trailers I've actually seen in a while, and I think that's really great for this project. And I love what it does because it tells a little story. And it starts out where it's like Kingpin is showing like he does not like, Maya being like bullied for her impairment and all that kind of stuff. And, he beats the absolute mess out of that guy in the alley. And then it's like, him having a dialogue where they're going through stuff and he's talking about how like he recognizes the monster, the anger inside of her. It's something that he relates to. And then they end that trailer with her standing there with a gun on him and he's like, who's the real monster? And I was like, man, this trailer is amazing. Like it's so good.
And it looked like the Kingpin that we know from the sort of Daredevil show a few years ago. So it looked like that same kind of level Kingpin.
I'm still looking forward to this. I can't wait to see more of Alaqua Cox in this role. She completely nails this role. We saw the brief Daredevil fight scene between the two, and we know there's history there where she had a relationship with Matt Murdock, but not Daredevil. So I wonder if they're going to play on that at all. I wonder if she's going to show up in his series at all. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I'm probably going to binge watch it as soon as it comes out.
It almost seems like she's going to be on the run from Kingpin after shooting him in the eye in, Hawkeye. And that's what this is going to build up to, is her on the run. And I almost feel like when we see Matt Murdock as Daredevil in this, it's going to be very brief. And it's going to be one of those things where it's like, she's going to think like, oh, he's coming after me. Kingpin sent him. He's like, somebody like an assassin or something that's coming after me. And he's going to have that moment where he conveys to her that he's not there to harm her. And he's going to try and point her in the right direction,
I think we'll see it for maybe an episode. It'll sort of feature in an episode and that's it really.
And I honestly think Marvel's going to do this thing where he's going to claim that he has history with Kingpin, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, that's the Netflix stuff. That's the Netflix." And then he's going to be like, talk about stuff that didn't happen in the Netflix show, and everybody's going to be really confused, and it's going to cause fans to kind of go back and forth. But yeah, it'd be.
But they could just drop that. We go way back, or we've got a past together, and then just that's it, and just maybe just leave it at that. It's kind of like saying it did happen, but we didn't actually specifically say what happened. So maybe it didn't happen, but it's a way of acknowledging it without actually acknowledging it, isn't it?
And it seems like the Kingpin's almost being set up to be like maybe mayor of New York or something like that. So like, you've kind of got this story potentially happening where he's been attacked, so he can use that to his advantage. He's been harmed. And then part of why like he's going after Maya could be like, he's like, I was attacked. I'm going to try and clean up these streets to make sure this doesn't happen to you. Like I could totally see that in this and make him like try and turn everybody against Maya.
Yeah. I mean, he may even try and use Maya to his advantage to sort of say, look, actually, these costumed heroes with abilities have been attacking me. I've been attacking normal people, and we need to take a stand, sort of thing. Yeah, it could be something like that. But I think that absolutely, he's going to end up being Maya, and that Devil's Reign storyline was superb. So I'd take that all day long.
Via the Hollywood Reporter, tonally, the footage screened for the press had hints of Daredevil, Breaking Bad, and John Wick, and in some ways, like Marvel's version of a cable drama rather than an MCU streaming series. So,
Yep,
there you go. Sense. Some nice comparisons there. Via Variety, Echo director Sidney Freeland teased that the Marvel hero will have different powers in the series than the comics. Her power in the comic books is that you can copy anything, any movement, any whatever. It's kind of lame. I will say that's not her power, which I wouldn't call it lame because that's pretty much like Taskmaster. But, you know, I understand them changing it for this show. Maya will be empowered by Choctaw women that came before her. She will have several different abilities that manifest when she's threatened, each power belonging to a different ancestor.
Interesting to see that play out with the that sort of whole Native American history.
Oh, there's more too. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it sounds kind of like Darwin. You know, like how Darwin's powers kind of like are reactive to threats to him. I mean, that's how her powers kind of almost sound like they're gonna be in this. You know.
Yeah. So her costume will be traditional Choctaw powwow attire made by her grandmother. It originally belonged to Maya's mother. She will also get a new prosthetic leg from her grandfather. Also, too, I don't know if you think about this. I've been thinking about this too as well. Marvel's been kind of nailing the culture of characters they're introducing. Look at Black Panther in Wakanda. Look at Namor and the whole Central America, Aztec, Mayan culture. Look at Miss Marvel and the whole Pakistani culture as well. So it seems like even with Echo, they're doing the actual work here that tie these more to those cultures and show and highlight those cultures as well.
Brilliant.
She also noted that there are street level consequences for Maya. About her journey, she's got all this bottled up emotion and rage feeling inside of her. She doesn't know what to do with it, and there's going to be somebody there to give her a nudge. That's the whole Kingpin thing that we see in the parallels. An exploration of trauma, how we deal with it, how we cope with it, how it affects us, how we affect it, how it affects those around us. It's not the fate of the universe at stake. This is the fate of the family. Also notes that Echo is the villain of this show. So this is one of the first shows that's going to focus on a villain, kind of like you said, Andy, where we need to see projects from not just the hero's point of view, but the villain's point of view as well. Now, as part of this too, so they did screen the first 2 episodes here recently, and they announced Marvel Spotlight. So we now have Marvel Spotlight announced. Marvel Studios screened the first 2 episodes of the upcoming series Echo during Choctaw Nation's annual powwow. During the screening, audience members in Oklahoma were also the first to see the new Marvel Spotlight banner with the musical fanfare composed by frequent Marvel collaborator Michael Giacchino. Marvel Spotlight is rooted in Marvel Comics' 85-year publishing history. Spotlight was an anthology comic book series first introduced in 1971 and was the origin of beloved Marvel characters like Ghost Rider and Spider-Woman. Echo will be the first series under the Marvel Spotlight banner, and the head of streaming Brad Winterbaum said of the decision to launch the new banner with Echo, Marvel Spotlight gives us a platform to bring more grounded, character-driven stories to the screen. In the case of Echo, focus on street-level stakes over the larger MCU continuity. Just like the comic fans didn't need to read Avengers or Fantastic Four to enjoy a Ghost Rider Spotlight comic, our audience doesn't need to have seen other Marvel series to understand what's happening in Maya's story. And this is great too. They could use this platform. They mentioned Ghost Rider. They could use it like Silver Surfer, Galactus, other Heralds of Galactus. They could do this with a lot of characters who we've seen. You know, Maya came through Hawkeye. They could do Young Avengers this way, even. They could do all kinds of things with Marvel Spotlight. It also seems like where this could be taken over from the special presentations where they're more one-shot things, to where this is more they can do a series and not have to worry about how much it ties to the bigger picture. But when that character pops up somewhere else, we know what their background and their story without having to know everything else.
And I think there's so many characters right now that people would love to see. They just don't really know where to put them. And Ghost Rider is a great example of that. With everything going on with the multiverse right now, like I wouldn't probably try and put Ghost Rider involved in that. But you do something like this, you can kind of put him off to the side. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be like a big over like the major arc like impacting thing for Ghost Rider to be involved. And yeah, I mean, like it lets people see the characters, and we can come back to them at a later point and connect them to something else if we really wanted to. But they can just be in their own little spot for right now, you know.
Yep.
I wonder if Moon Knight gets moved underneath this, because Moon Knight is kind of a similar thing to where Moon Knight really isn't tied to much right now, but we know the character story, and where Moon Knight could pop up anywhere else. They could also do like the Man Thing Rumored special. They could put any more of the darker side of stuff. They could do even an Elsa, yeah, thank you, Elsa Bloodstone. More of that darker side. Even Blade could come underneath this. Black Knight, Merlin, MI13, more Son, your Fallsworth stuff. All those things come underneath this banner. So
yeah, and that happens all the time in the comics. You get an overarching story that sort of has got little threads running through it from different characters' books, and then you get different characters' books that have got absolutely nothing to do with that overarching story, and they're just their own contained story. And you don't have to read everything, and you don't have to watch everything. And I think we've said before, is it going that hopefully we've got to that point now where you don't actually have to watch everything to understand what's going on in these side projects or even the overarching projects. If you want to know what's going on in the overarching project, you need to keep your eye on the sort of the Avengers movies or a certain few projects or stories, but maybe not these side projects like Echo or Moon Knight or any potential MI13 or Black Knight or whatever. You might not need to necessarily watch those to understand what's going on in the bigger picture.
We're kind of cool. What they did is that, like, say for instance, we have Ghost Rider that pops up in a project, right? And all of a sudden we have like a freeze frame. You want to know more? Go watch Marvel Spotlight Ghost Rider series if you want to know more about Ghost Rider. Then all of a sudden it just goes right into the story. That would be a good way to do it.
And they've done that all the time in the comics in the old days. Down in the bottom, they used to have Fantastic Four 35 or whatever, like, and go back to that. This was when this happened,
And you know what they could even do? They could even go like so far as to do like a show like Spirits of Vengeance, and like I would love to see just like a show focused on Danny Ketch and Johnny Blaze. But they could even take that a little bit further and do like say like a 6-episode series where each one's about a different Ghost Rider. And you could do like one episode about Johnny Blaze, one about Danny Ketch, one about Frank Castle as the Cosmic Ghost Rider. You could like go on. And
the one female one that I keep saying, the actress from Prey we perked for.
She was also Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, she's Sorcerer Supreme and a Ghost Rider. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got another one like Alejandra Jones. There's tons of Ghost Riders. Like you could just choose like Robbie Reyes could be another one, and like it'd be cool. They could do like a little mini event where all the Ghost Riders get like a group of them team up or something like at the end. Like it would just be cool. Like I just want to see more than one Ghost Rider in the MCU. To be honest, I don't want us to be stuck on just like only seeing one at one time.
Just give me a closing shot of that with Moon Knight popping in and just stealing the Hell Charger. I love that comic book panel of him stealing the Hell Charger. I love that one. You can also do Moon Knight and Ghost Rider, the whole group that they're in.
Midnight Suns.
Yeah, Midnight Suns as well. On blank there. Yeah, you could do that. We've already kind of started some pieces of that. Bring it all together through that. So yeah, I love to see more of this.
Just no Morbius. No Morbius.
Hey, always, what's going to happen with him now? Is he was he in a branch that was destroyed, that was bombed?
Hopefully.
Emmys news. I Am Groot. They got 2 outstanding short form program Children Emmys nominations, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special got 7 Emmy nominations. So
cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Creature Commandos, according to Bobby Pill's Animation Studios, Creature Commandos will consist of 7 episodes, each with a 22-minute runtime, and will not be released until 2025. Also was noted that Anya Chalotra is rumored to play Cersei in the DCU for Creature Commandos. Now, about that 2025 release, James Gunn took to social media and said it was never postponed. Yes, Creature Commandos is still set to come out in 2024. There have never been any delays. Thank goodness. Any info otherwise is well-intentioned mistake or misspeaking. So it's still on track for 2024, according to James Gunn. So that's why you gotta be careful, because some people can get their news wrong or their communication mixed up. So
coming from the horse's mouth there.
Yeah. Superman and Lois. They will end with season 4. Season 4 will air in 2024. And I actually like this show. I've watched it. I have not been the biggest fan of the CW shows. I think Stargirl and Superman and Lois are the ones I pretty much watched. I did watch the Crisis crossover stuff, a little bit of Supergirl, but these two are the mainstays, and I know Alex and I have always said this, that Tyler Hoechlin plays the best Superman Clark Kent, and I don't know why they haven't done more with him.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me because, like, I think there are two DC TV shows that people just sleep on, and one of them is Stargirl, and the other one is Superman and Lois. And I'm not a big Superman fan, but man, do I love the way that he plays Clark Kent. He's goofy, like, you'd believe that he would be Clark Kent. And then as Superman, like, he's not, like, who I pictured to play Superman, but he doesn't do a bad job either. And, you know, like, with the Stargirl show, like, I think that is one of my favorite DC projects ever. But this is, like, for like stuff airing on the CW, Superman and Lois is like right behind that, you know? Like, I mean, they have so many good scenes and stuff, and things that maybe don't look the best with CGI, like it makes up for it tenfold in story with both Stargirl and Superman and Lois. So, you know.
So it's coming to an end. Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny will be streaming December 1st on Disney Plus.
I'll give it a watch.
Yeah, I will too.
See what the commotion was about.
Yeah. Dune is getting a prequel. Dune Prophecy is the name of the spin-off show. It's going to be 10,000 years in the past, focusing on the Harkin sisters. And it's going to be releasing the fall of 2024.
That's quite a hard concept to understand, isn't it? Something that's taken 10,000 years ago, you know, in the same universe. You're like, I get it, but that's a long time. Mm-hmm. A few hundred years is sort of, I can understand it, but 10,000 years, and you kind of going, I can't comprehend how long ago that is. Like, how beings still alive that affected what's happening now, you know?
It's just a little bit of a prequel. It's like you know, it's like the mascara for the DC shows with the Amazons. Like, I think they said that was supposed to take place like 5,000 years ago, and it's like, yeah, the Amazons have like always been sort of doing their thing like for thousands of years, but it's like, do we really need to know what they were doing 5,000 years ago? You know, like
500 maybe, but like 5,000. Come on, is that relevant to what's happening now?
Yeah, I just don't really feel like that's going to really play into any stories or anything going forward. It's like, oh yeah, so you know, 5,000 years ago, like, okay, well, yeah, this is what caused this now, you know, like, okay.
So. The last thing, The Boys. Eric Kripke provides an update on season 4 release date. Most of the editing is done. We're now deep into the music and visual effects. Marketing is starting to taxi their planes on the runway. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see The Boys like this month, next month, or even early 2024.
Wow, yeah.
So
Gen V, I know we've all seen the Gen V finale now. That landed, stuck the landing, didn't it? I think that was a great show.
Yeah, that is one of the best shows I've watched recently. The writing was just fantastic. And it's got, man, some of the twists in that show were great, you know. It's like riding a roller coaster, the ups and the downs, you know.
I can't wait to see season 4 of The Boys, how that ties in and how the story continues.
Yeah, and this sort of sets that up, I feel like, you know.
It's almost like you got Gen V on one path, and then it splits off to The Boys, and it's going to come back again to Gen V season 2, and maybe keep crossing over back into the main show. So you know, I thought that was a really, really entertaining show on every level. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Are we done?
We are done. We are done with take 2 of this episode, and I just checked the group, and everything is still streaming, so we should be good. No problems.
And amazingly as well, I think we're almost on the exact same time that we spent talking about it on Sunday as well. So
no, we're right now we're about 4 minutes shy because it was an hour 22 because I remember the timestamp.
Okay, gotcha. Well, tell them where they can catch us. By the time you've done that, we'll be about an hour and 20, I reckon.
Yep. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us feedback wherever you follow your podcast platform. This audio should be out tomorrow since we had the issues this week. I had to do the restream. You can catch us the live stream on our Facebook page and the Facebook groups on Trovo, Kick, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you're on Twitter, we don't see the chat, so make your way over to their platforms, and you can see other posts on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome. Great job. We will be back live tomorrow to talk about the Marvels and do a little preview on that before we all go and see it over the weekend. We'll catch you then. Take care.
Bye. Yeah.